early in the beginning, it is the minority of people that are doing it the new, better way. And so they're in the minority and they're often very quiet. They're just going about it and they're doing it. They're not saying, hey, look at me, I'm doing it. They're not showboating it. They're just like, yeah, that is the new, better way. I see how that fits into my work. I see how that's a better way to do my work. And I'm going to do it the new, better way. And they're not, being, really loud or boastful about it. And they are in the minority. But then there is the majority of people that aren't doing it the new, better way. And sometimes they're very loud and sometimes they're very negative.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzloff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Welcome to another solo episode. This is called a Culture Byte, and this is a short solo episode. And today's topic of this Culture Byte is related to having an agile culture. So what that really is all about is having a culture in which your workforce can more successfully and more quickly and more easily adopt change and to move things to being better in the future more readily. So, it's unfortunate but true that humans, we just don't like to change. I teach this stuff. I study this stuff. I coach this stuff with individuals and entire groups and entire organizations. And I myself have so many examples where I struggle with change. And I won't go into those here today, but you could probably think of the examples yourself of how many times, even if you decided you wanted to make the change and you were very motivated to make the change, you still struggled to do so. Maybe it's as simple as this idea that good habits are hard to make and bad ones are hard to break, right? And why is that so? That good habits, where we even get positive feedback from the new habit, maybe it's for our health, and we get that positive feedback of feeling better and, losing the weight and our lab values improving, and yet we still struggle to maintain the good habits. So as humans, it's just part of the human condition. And when we're talking about changing an entire organization or asking people within an entire organization to make changes, adopt new changes that are, in essence, better habits, we can expect that they are going to struggle. So one of the things that we're very proud of at Capstone Leadership Solutions is that when we're working with entire organizations, we are now armed with a much deeper and better understanding about this phenomenon, about how humans, will or won't adopt change and what it takes to be successful and to have it happen maybe more easily than in the past. So we've been able to recognize, now working with dozens of healthcare organizations, we're able to see the patterns across organizations. And in the beginning, we used to recognize when these barriers to change would pop up. We would recognize them, then we would problem solve them and overcome them and help the organizations do that. But now we're more proactive. In fact, our approach to implementing a framework for positive change in organizations to improve and grow is that, we really are about positive, proactive, results oriented tactics. And so when it comes to change, now we can take a different approach, right? We can educate the organizations and the leaders and the teams that we work with. We can educate them on common barriers to change. And we've now identified 7 patterns or barriers that we can assess for And we do a baseline assessment for this when we start working with a new partner organization, which is a healthcare organization where we're going to be guiding them to adopt a new approach to always getting better, always improving, always growing. And so we're able to assess for this more proactively, help educate on it more proactively, so that maybe not only can we recognize them sooner, remove them sooner, but maybe even proactively prevent some of these barriers from surfacing, or at least being able to minimize them right out of the gate. So today I really wanted to focus on, in particular, this idea of organizations that have a past history of flavor of the month initiatives. So what I mean by that is organizations where you'll hear the employees, you'll hear the leaders say, there's so many times where we tried to make a change and it just didn't stick, right? So it became flavor of the month. We tried that before and it didn't work. Now, what's really interesting and what we know is often what they tried was a really good thing to try, right? Like they had found a great solution. They had found a new, better way. And they tried to implement that to get people to adopt that new, better way. And it didn't stick, right? People just didn't buy it. They didn't go for it. They didn't make that new, better habit. And so, really, what any change requires in an organization is that there's this perseverance and persistence in the efforts to shepherd that change to success. And that takes actually a lot longer than most people are willing to give it. So we shortchange the process of shepherding that change so that it reaches enough people, that it gets enough traction in the culture, in the workforce. That's a concept called diffusion. When an individual decides to do it the new, better way, that's called adoption. It is diffusion when many people adopt and it's now diffused in a large group of people. And it has to get to a large enough amount of people, usually more than 50% of the people that, need to do it the new, better way, that more than 50% are consistently and competently doing it the new, better way before it really has staying power. And that takes time, sometimes even years. And so many times we just don't have a systematic cadence of activities and maybe even a group of people that are owning the oversight of that change long term to be able to shepherd that diffusion all the way to the staying power. If we shortchange it and we do one and done, so for instance, we do training once on a new protocol or policy, we do training once and then we go silent on it, then, we're surprised when people aren't doing it the new, better way. Now, there's some research behind this. It is by Everett Rogers, and it goes back to the 1960s. If you can think of a bell curve, right? Think of a bell curve, and at that very left tail end of the bell curve where it's very, very small, there's a very small group of people that are going to be the very first people that are most likely to create the new habit, do it the new, better way. And that's the actual people that innovated it, right? So if you're on a project team or a task force or an oversight committee that's oversighting a change, then you're likely going to be the ones that do it first and get competent and consistent with it first. But that's a very small group. Often it's less than 2 or 3% of the people in the entire organization. And so that isn't enough to really make a positive impact from the change, get the results the change was intended to get, right? The positive results, but it's also not enough to have staying power long term. And remember, culture, we use this definition of culture as this is how we do things around here. And that's what we mean by, having new, better ways is having new, better ways of doing things around here, whether that's how we behave, that's how we perform our job tasks, that's how we have high standards for service excellence and communication and all those things, those are the new, better ways. And so if we want to have staying power with these new, better ways, we have to reach more people than the people that created the change, right? Or innovated it. So often that's done through an effective date of a new policy, a go live date for a new piece of technology or protocol, or, maybe we have a training on the new, better way. And that kind of launches it from the innovators into the masses, right? And so we do this training, we circulate this new policy protocol, etc., have a go live date, and all of a sudden we're supposed to reach all of the people. And that one effort just isn't going to do it, right? It's just not. The research and the evidence and the theory supports that that's not going to happen. In fact, there is going to be a very small group of people after initial training or go live date that really say yes to it. They really decide to adopt it. And that's about another 13 or 14%. So now, after this one time effort of the innovators to decide how to do it the new, better way, them launching some training, go live date, or new protocol or policy on the new, better way. And now we've got maybe 15, 16% of our workforce that is doing it the new, better way. Now, that is enough to start getting some results, some positive results. And that's really important in keeping the diffusion going, or, trying to reach more people, is starting to talk about those positive results and those stories of positive impact from those people that are doing it. So that is actually one tactic that, whoever is championing this effort, and there should be, a consistent group of people to continually champion the effort till it gets to the point of staying power. And that, again, can take not usually months, but even years to do that. And it doesn't take a lot of effort after that, but you can't, stop the efforts, or the initiative is going to stop. And even those innovators, even those early adopters may eventually even stop, doing it the new, better way. And, we had 15 or 16%, and then we go back to very few people doing it the new, better way. So you got to keep going after the people that aren't doing it. But early in the beginning, it is the minority of people that are doing it the new, better way. And so they're in the minority, and they're often very quiet. They're just going about it and they're doing it. They're not saying, hey, look at me, I'm doing it. They're not showboating it. They're just like, yeah, that is the new, better way. I see how that fits into my work. I see how that's a better way to do my work. And I'm going to do it the new, better way. And they're not, being, really loud or boastful about it. And they are in the minority. But then there is the majority of people that aren't doing it the new, better way. Hey, it's Sue here, and I'm popping in with a quick announcement. Just wanted to make sure you didn't miss the opportunity to consider joining the next Capstone Leadership Bundle Academy offering. So it starts September 16th. This is our remote virtual way of getting our 9 core leadership bundle practices into the hands of leaders all across the country. And so 10 weeks of learning, 10 weeks of engaging with our coaches and other students. It is transformative, and it starts September 16th. Learn a practical, doable, proven way to be more effective as a healthcare leader. We're happy to help, and the Academy is one way that we're able to do that. So capstoneleadership.net/academy. More details and registration information is available there. I'll put that link in the show notes. And sometimes they're very loud, and sometimes they're very negative. And so that can often stop the people that are doing it, or the people that are trying to champion it. And they're like, wow, maybe this isn't the new, better way. Maybe we should go back to the old way. Maybe they're right? And that's rarely true. They may have some pointers to study and adjust and make it even better. They may have some real information about what is a struggle to implement it, and those things may need to be problem solved. So we have to listen to those that are not adopting it, that are resisting it. Those that are quietly resisting it aren't very helpful to us. And oftentimes we want to avoid the people that are loudly resisting it because we just, don't want to hear it. We just assume it's negativity and we don't look for the pearls and the gems and engage them in discussion as to, let me understand why you're struggling with that. Let me understand what you think is wrong with this new, better way and this approach to the new, better way. And so that's an important responsibility of the innovators and the people that are shepherding this change long term in the organization, is to actually engage with those not doing it and to actually engage with those doing it. And so those that are doing it and getting success, sharing their stories, sharing their wins, those that are not doing it, listening to understand what their struggles are, what their barriers are. There are a couple of tactics, especially for leaders of employees that are expected to do it the new, better way. So let's say there's a task force that's implemented a change for the organization, and now they've done an organization-wide training on this change. And now truly they can be helped. This task force can be helped by all the leaders in the organization, not just those that might have been on the task force. And hopefully, actually, it was more employees on the task force if it's a change that's meant for all employees in the organization or a large majority of them to embrace, because it's better to do it with them, not to them. So that's a helpful tactic too, is who are the innovators and are they really representative of the stakeholders that need to adopt the new, better way? But the leaders in the organization, all of the leaders in the organization who have employees that can benefit from doing it the new, better way, there's a couple tactics that they can use to really support the task force and support the success of the change. And they're really two R's: remind and recognize. So we need to remind our employees that, hey, there is this new, better way. And sometimes we might call that negative nagging, right? And that's not what I mean here. I really mean just top of mind tactics where you're reminding people in positive ways. Everyone, we attended that training a couple weeks ago on this, and I'm just here to remind you today at today's huddle or today's staff meeting. I'm here to remind you that this is something we're all to try and give it a go, and just remind them, right? So we call these top of mind tactics. And so a regular cadence of reminding people, hey guys, don't forget there's a new, better way to do this, and doing it in positive ways. So just gentle reminders. It could be a symbol. I remember in my nursing units where we were putting in a new practice of certain behaviors and actions we took every time we entered a patient's room. We put a heart on the door frame of the patient's room as a reminder of those key actions that we take every time we engage in that sacred encounter in a patient's room, and our new protocol and standards for those interactions. And so that was just a visible reminder, right? So it wasn't the leader just reminding them. It was this visible reminder that every time, night or day, 100 times a day, anyone entered that room, they could be reminded by that visible symbol. And I would see people touch that heart on the door frame to be reminded. So reminders is one way. Another is recognition. So recognizing those people that are doing it the new, better way, those early adopters, really recognizing them privately, maybe even publicly at huddles or staff meetings or in other ways, so that we're celebrating those that are adopting early and celebrating their wins, telling their stories of success and impact. And so that recognition is very important. But also recognizing those people that are trying. Even those people that are trying, and even those people that are bringing suggestions forward for even tweaking the new, better way, that are bringing up their struggles, recognizing them for at least contemplating and considering and giving it a go. All of that should be recognition worthy. And so we want to recognize all of the efforts that people are making. So we don't recognize people just when they're above and beyond, right? So, and when they've adopted the new, better way and they're competent and consistent, if we hold back our recognition till then, we're not using recognition and its power to promote change. Let's say we have a new telephone etiquette protocol and there's 4 key tactics to incorporate into each telephone encounter, and you notice that one of your employees just got off a phone call and you notice that they didn't use all 4, but they used 1 or 2 of them. And you can say, hey, I noticed. I want to recognize you for giving the new telephone etiquette protocol a go. I heard you incorporate these 2 steps into that call. And so this is an opportunity to recognize the attempts. So remind and recognize, keep the positivity going. And again, this doesn't just happen, in the first week after the training. This is something that needs to happen. And so when organizations have multiple changes going on, and they always do, and they always should, then maybe we need to have a regular cadence and even schedule and be very intentional about this. What are we focused on recognizing and noticing this week, this month, and reminding people on? So even those task force that we talk about, let's say you have a patient experience team that's championing all of your high standards and your protocols for service excellence and safe and satisfying care. And that team is really owning that. Well, they're going to have more than one new, better way. There's going to be multiple things like 12 positive communication standards, those kind of things. And so they might have a routine schedule of this month, we're going to remind and recognize people regarding this one, and next month, that one. Leaders can do the same thing in their department. So what are those standards or protocols that, and behaviors that we want to really bring and keep alive in our department? And do we have intentionally, set schedules for when we're focused on reminding and recognizing people on X change or Y change? And this is how intentional and deliberate we need to get in shepherding our changes to success, to getting them to having staying power and optimizing the positive impact. So it's not change just for the sake of change and saying we're successful with the change. It's because each change has a very intentional why. Why do we need to make this change? What positive impact? Why is it going to get us better results than what we were doing before? And so sometimes that's the key thing to keeping us motivated, to persevere, to, really be able to not be beaten down by any negativity and resistance to change, and to really just keep going forward. The task force needs to be connected to their why. Leaders need to be connected to their why. And that gives us the energy and the motivation we need to do things like remind and recognize. So there we go. Flavor of the month, start, stop. We tried that before and it didn't work. We can overcome this as departments, as entire organizations, and as humans. It just takes a little bit of perseverance to keep going, to not give up until we have created, this is how we do it around here. It's not extra work. It's how we do our work. And, we get to a point where we can't even imagine not doing these things. It doesn't even feel like effort anymore. It's so natural. It's so normal. And that's what we're going for. And it's the great results. It's the great culture that's on the other side of that work. And so thank you for your time and attention today on this important topic of creating a more agile workforce and culture where you work. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.